You're interviewing Steve Aoki in an hour. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to interview Steve Aoki in an hour? I'd never interviewed anybody at this point, got nothing prepared. And I was thrown straight in the deep end. And the next night, I interviewed Carl Cox and Marco Carola. Back to as an interview sandwich. Marco sat here and Carl sat here, and then that was it. And then I've never, never looked back. And I just think it's so important. We need to document our scene. We need to have these conversations. That's what I feel like my role has turned into now. I used to see it more of just like, oh, you know, who's the next DJ that I want to interview and who is on my bucket list to interview. But now I see it more as a bit of a responsibility to document what's happening and who, you know, what people do with their careers, because, you know, it's important that we have all of these conversations. I did that for 2 summers and it was a crash course of interviewing artists every single night. I would interview 3 to 4 artists every night. And I would do it 7 days a week. And that is basically what I did. But I still carried on doing my press and my social media jobs in a daytime. So I would, and at that point as well, I would have waited until 6 a.m. until that club closed to wait to get my interview, and then go home, have a couple of hours sleep, do it all again. And yeah, that was the best times because I just learned so much about interviewing.
Hi guys, thank you so much for joining me on this week's podcast. I'll be really quick. 70% of the people that watch this podcast aren't subscribers. Podcasts are the hardest channels to build. I'd really, really appreciate your help just by clicking that subscribe button. It takes a few seconds and it's free. Thanks so much, and let's continue. I'm really glad you're here today because actually when I started to do this podcast, weirdly, you were one of the first names I put on the list that I wanted to speak
Oh,
to.
really?
Yeah. And the reason was because I don't think people know enough about presenters and hosts within the scene, because if you go back, date back all the way to Clubbervision, all the way back to Ibiza Uncovered, you know, they all had hosts and presenters. And I guarantee you, anybody who's listening now will remember the voice from Ibiza Uncovered. You know, it was a very specific voice and stuff.
Totally.
And I've always found that hosts and people who you do Boiler Room and we'll go into that in a minute, are not often discussed as much as they should do. And I've found the whole role quite fascinating because there's not many of you, is there?
No, there isn't actually. There isn't. I always find that we always kind of end up being the same people doing the same jobs because there's not that many of us hosting.
It's a skill.
But it is, and I just think it's so important. We need to document our scene. We need to have these conversations. That's what I feel like my role has turned into now. I used to see it more of just like, oh, you know, who's the next DJ that I want to interview and who is on my bucket list to interview. But now I see it more as a bit of a responsibility to document what's happening and who, you know, what people do with their careers, because, you know, it's important that we have all of these conversations.
Yeah, yeah. And you do it. I like the way you do yours because you're quite, you do different things, like you're doing Cooking with Fatboy Slim and remember In Bed, you were in bed with Kiki.
Yeah.
You remember that? Yeah. That not like that. Not like that for people who haven't watched it. But
it was an in-bed conversation. We were laid in bed having a conversation during ADE. But yeah, that's what I like. Like, I like doing like things that are just a little bit outside the box. Obviously, I think it's important to have you know, your standard conversations and panels and interviews and podcasts. But yeah, it's nice to do something. So I just think it makes the artist or the guest just feel a lot more comfortable, and, you know, that
and a
doesn't
bit
make them
more
feel like I'm
real.
being interviewed. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is why I did mine, because that's what I've been in the industry 30 years. I know enough of these people, and I've managed to get loads of people who've never done podcasts before, and they've all
You've got
turned around
great
and said,
guests on your podcast.
"Love
It's
it."
great.
They wanted to, and the thing is, I'm going to do them all again because obviously, as the channel grows, so many people have not seen it, and you can do them again and again. First of all, I'm going to lots of people who don't know you, and lots of people don't know me, but what would you call yourself? You are the hostess with the mostest.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's kind. No, I'd podcaster and presenter is what I
Yeah.
say I was. That it's the only career that I have had, to be honest.
Yeah, you've been doing it a
Um,
while.
yeah, I have, and like straight out of uni, that's what I did, and it just happened to be and become in dance music. So yeah, I would say presenter, a
Yeah.
podcaster, um, and I just like to just chat
And
really.
host.
And
Host with
host
and
and
you're a
host.
host at like things like IMS and award ceremonies and stuff like that, which is kind of the same
Yes,
as
I've
being
done
a
like the
presenter.
DJ awards and IMS, and as you said before, Boiler Room. Um, yeah, that's
That's
like
so
the more
cool.
event side of it, which is so different to
Yeah.
normal presenting when you're just doing it in camera or sorry, on camera or on radio. Um, but I just love all forms of presenting, to be honest.
Hi guys, I hope you're enjoying the episode. There's plenty more to come, so please stick around. Doing a very quick favour for a very good friend of mine. You may have known him. His name is KIRK, who's written these two incredible books. This one he released a while ago, Rave New World. This is his new one, and if you're thinking of the perfect Christmas present this year, this will be it. By the way, this isn't a paid ad. I'm just doing it as a favour. It's Christmas, and I just want to give back to KIRK because he has done so much in these books documenting the scene. And that's what I'm all about with these podcasts. So have a look in the description for the links. And here's a clip from the main man himself.
I've worked out I've taken over 10,000 people to Ibiza on holiday. I can count the complaints on one hand. One was from a couple who had sacrificed their first night partying in order to get up at the crack of dawn to sit on the rocks at Cafe Mambo in San Antonio for over 2 hours after some Ibiza know-all back home told them it was the most iconic sunrise in the world. Their complaint ended with a woman declaring, "We can't see what all the fuss is about. When it did finally appear, it was from over the bloody building behind us, not the sea like we've seen in all the photos. Should we have come in June?"
I find it a fascinating job because I know I could never do it. So where are you actually from originally?
So I am originally from Ruislip, which
Mm-hmm.
is West London. And when I was 12, my parents moved to Spain. So I've lived in Spain more of my life than I have lived in the UK. And I lived in Spain up until about 2 years ago. So in Spain, they moved to a place called Javia, which is between Alicante and Valencia.
I know it. Yeah, I
Um,
know it very well.
oh, really? Nice.
Yeah, I used to, when I was a baby, a kid, I lived in Calpe, Alicante.
It's so close. That's
Yeah, yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
And
lovely.
and then when we were in Ibiza, we actually spent a couple of winters just outside Benidorm in Altea.
Oh, cute. Yeah, I'll tell you, hills,
So
they're lovely. Very nice.
the old town. We lived in the old town as well,
Just,
up near the church.
just
It was just like living in the 19th century. It was just beautiful up
yeah,
there.
it's
So
stunning. It's so lovely. So
mainland
yeah,
is
and they
gorgeous on the
still live
coast.
there. They still live there today. And then obviously I
Really?
was so close. Yeah, they're still there. And obviously it's so close to Ibiza. So the closest point of mainland Spain to Ibiza is Javia. So for me, it was so easy to get across. It was only 2 hours on the ferry, 2 hours there and 2 hours back. So yeah, so I grew up there and then I went to uni in Valencia, so really not that far away from where they were, and then stayed and then moved to Ibiza in 2013 and lived there until 2023, so 10 years.
So you are
And now I'm
totally
back in the UK.
bilingual, fluent bilingual. Absolutely, because you grew up with the language. So I
Yeah.
imagine I imagine when you were at university, you were even thinking in Spanish.
Yeah, well, all of my
Yeah,
studies were in Spanish. In fact,
yeah.
I found it quite hard to then switch back
Mm.
to English, if I'm honest with you, because
I
I was talking more of Spanish than I was in
yeah.
English. And um, yeah, I when I moved to Spain, like we'd had a tutor for a few years before we moved to Spain, and then when we moved, my parents put us straight into a Spanish school, so I
Mm.
had no choice but to learn, which I found really difficult at the age of 12. But it opened so many doors for me, and then obviously, especially moving to Ibiza, it really, really helped with my career. So now I am so grateful that they made that move. And yeah, obviously now I'm back here, so I probably think in English more than I do Spanish. But as soon as I'm I had a friend over from Ibiza just a few days ago. So, your brain just flicks through them quite quickly, when you can speak multiple languages. So
Yeah, yeah. I live in a multilingual household, and they start in Croatian and finish in English and things like that. And but the kids, it's just like one language to them. And then they'll speak in the local dialect and stuff like that. And then they'll start, because we're close to
great.
Italy, they'll start speaking Italian very soon as well.
Wow.
They're
It's
just
great. I love it.
they're wonderful. They're wonderful linguists in this part of the world. The only country in the world that are not linguists are the English.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Right here. Yeah. It's so true.
Oh, it's so
It's
annoying,
so
so
true.
annoying.
Everyone makes an effort to come and try and speak English, and like when they come here, everyone will make an effort. But if we go anywhere, I mean, when I say we, I mean a lot of other people go to other countries, and you don't know any words at all. But I don't know.
My
Gotta be
grammar
that.
is put to shame by the grammar of what the Croatian people know. I mean, I remember learning past, future, present, and it's like they learn future, perfect, blah blah blah, all these other tenses that they learn. I'm like, what?
Wow.
We didn't learn those. I'm sure we didn't learn those. I know I'm old, but I'm sure I can definitely remember that we only learned future, past, and present. But their grammar's excellent, and their English is excellent. So yeah, I
Yeah.
get that. And so, were you always into the electronic music side of things?
I've always wanted to be a presenter. That was my dream from the age of 5. From the age of 5, I wanted to be a presenter, and that is the only thing I've ever wanted to do. Um, I didn't ever really think it was going to be in dance music. I'd always enjoyed dance music, and um, my parents used to go to Ibiza when they were younger. My mum's worked in radio as well, so I've always been surrounded by music. And I but I never thought that this is where I'd end up being. I thought I wanted to do more like lifestyle presenting. Um, but I just happened to know the marketing director of Amnesia when I was looking for work experience when I was at uni. And he said to me, "Do you want to come over for 3 months during summer? You can help me with the press, you can help me with the social media, and yeah, that can be your work experience." And I was like, "Yes, definitely, I will come to Ibiza."
What a
And then I never
place!
left. That was it. And then I just ended up
What? And so
falling in
that was
love with it.
2013.
That was 2000.
13, you did that. That good
Yeah.
years from you. That was when like Music On and all that lot was starting, wasn't
We
it?
had music on, we had Cream, we had Together on a
Cocoon,
Tuesday, Cocoon on a Monday,
awesome days. Yeah,
Matinee on a Saturday.
it's
It was
6 or 7 good
great,
nights.
great
Yeah,
times,
yeah,
amazing
yeah.
times. And as soon as I started working there, I was just like, I just loved it so much. I just was so excited about everything that was happening. And for a lot of people that had worked there for a long time, it was just, another night here at the club. But I loved it. And my role went from helping out in the press department to then helping with with social media and doing Facebook posts. And like Facebook was very big at that point. Um and yeah, I would be full hands on anything that I could get into. I just wanted to be there. And I would spend my whole day at the office, which would be 10 a.m. in the morning,
Yeah,
7
yeah, yeah.
p.m. Then I would go home, I would shower, I would have my dinner, and I would come back to the club for midnight, and I would stay till the very end. And then I'd have a few hours sleep, and I would do it all again 7 days a week because that's what you did. I
They're a
couldn't do
great
it
bunch.
now.
Oh my God, could you imagine? We'd be dead.
No, I could think of anything
Oh,
worse.
oh my
Uh,
God. I did like a couple of hours sleep before I went to the airport on the way home from Ibiza this year, and or 4 hours, I think it was. I don't drink anymore either. And I had the most horrendous journey home, and I'm
it's
just like, how
horrible.
did I used to do this? And then obviously I realized it was fueled by other things, but we
Yeah,
used to do this for 6 months, six,
I
seven
know.
months, and every day, every day, every day, every day. So you were kind of your first experience was Amnesia TV. That
Well, so I started, as I said before, doing the social media and the press,
yeah,
and Marty, who at that point was the son, or still is the son of
yes,
the
I know
then owner
Martin. Yeah,
Martin Ferrer. So Marty, who now is one of the owners, he said to me, he was like, I want to start a YouTube channel. I want to start a YouTube channel. See, I should have listened to him back then and started my podcast there.
Yeah.
I want to start a YouTube channel and I need somebody that can speak English and Spanish and wants to interview the DJs every night. Do you want to give it a go? And I was like, yes, I definitely want to give it a go. I'd never interviewed anybody at this point. I just loved, just
Oh, you had your pick there.
yeah. Well, exactly. That was the thing. So then he said, he was like, right, okay then. And that was midday one day. And I went home that night about 7 p.m. Went to have my dinner, came back. And when I got back to the club, he went, right, you've got your first interview in an hour. Because I thought what he meant was, we'll start this YouTube at some point in the season. I didn't think it was going to be like, we're starting today. He was like, you're interviewing Steve Aoki in an hour. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to interview Steve Aoki in an hour? I've got nothing prepared. And I was thrown straight in the deep end. And the next night, I interviewed Carl Cox and Marco Carola as an interview sandwich. Marco sat here and Carl sat here. And then that was it. And then I've never, never looked back. It just started. And it was
You were totally thrown in the deep end, and that's how if you've got to
totally
swim
thrown in the deep
fast.
end. I didn't know how to interview anyone. I was very new to the industry. There was a lot of things that I still didn't know what meant or how things worked. But I did that for 2 summers, and it was a crash course of interviewing artists every single night. I would interview 3 to 4 artists every night. And I would do it 7 days a week. And that is basically what I did. But I still carried on doing my press and my social media jobs in a daytime. So and at that point as well, I would have waited until 6 a.m. until that club closed to wait to get my interview. And sometimes you wouldn't even get your interview at 6 a.m. because at that point they're like, I'm not going to do an interview at that point. But I would wait till the very end and then go home, have a couple of hours sleep, do it all again. And yeah, that was the best times because I just learned so much about interviewing and also networking. There were so many people that I met and so many artists that for them, they were just starting out in their career as well. So it was like their first interviews as well. And, I don't know, like Joseph Capriati, for example. I remember
Marco wasn't
interviewing him.
Carola. He wasn't
Marco
that big.
Carola. Yeah,
It just blew,
he
that
was
summer it blew
starting.
up, didn't it? It really
Totally.
music
That was
on.
it. That was it. Like
But
I would never get an interview with Marco now, but yeah, it's nice to be able to see that sometimes I've been on a bit of a journey with some of these artists, I've interviewed them from the very beginning. And now if I go over and be like, or like Capriati, for example, and I've interviewed him so many times since then. And we always say how nice it is to see how we grow in the industry. So, and in our careers. So it's really nice.
I remember that year really well, the music on. Everyone wore black, didn't they? Everyone wore black.
Everyone wore
And
black.
they ran their license every morning on the terrace. And it was just known for that morning, wasn't it? And they couldn't do that carry on into the morning. Sadly, because I think that is one of Ibiza's finest moments when Amnesia is lighting up, It reminds me of the old... Yeah, it reminds me of the old privileged days when Manumission would light up in the morning. I haven't been to Universe yet, so I don't know what that is like. We were too busy. Did you get yourself over there this year?
No, and if I'm totally honest with you, I haven't been able to get myself around to doing it either. And I think that just comes down to I just loved Ibiza, what it was, and I know that Ibiza has to evolve just like anything in life, but I think there's still part of me that just can't let go of that, them times, and seeing now how changed it is quite hard. But it's the same as when space closed, I found it really hard to go to high for the first time, and it took me a really long time. So I'll go eventually because I'm going to have to, but I haven't gone yet. Might just wait a little bit longer.
I admit something to you. I've never been to high.
Really?
Can't do it.
I
Can't do
know.
it. I was speaking to Jonathan Ulysses. Obviously he was the resident at Space. And he said it was really strange when he went to high, because when he went in the back, or when he went to see one of the guys, Charlie or whoever was there, he said some of the back rooms are still spacey, They look still very
Really?
similar to space, and it's just like, and then all of a sudden it's very different when you go out into the main rooms. But he said there was still an element of space still there, deep down in the heart,
Yeah.
yeah, in the heart of
It's
behind the
still there.
scenes.
Like when you used to go through the kitchen, like you can still
That's his,
see
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
still
yeah,
there.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Talking of kitchens, how many times did you run through the kitchens at Amnesia to
Oh,
get from?
all the time.
I get constantly kicked out of there. I got-
Love it
there's
though, because
literally
there's so many little
there's a
secret
security
places in
guard there. Oh,
Amnesia.
yeah. Do you know what? The best one is Nick Ferguson. Because obviously you know Nick from Cream, and
Yeah.
my partner in all of these. Now, when we go upstairs in Amnesia, as you know, it's full of nooks and crannies and steps and low things that you can bang your head on, and like trying to walk around and stuff. When I
Yeah.
see Nick, I'm chasing him because he's going. We've got to go here, but we've got to go, and he goes all the short ways, and he knows every little step, duck, and it's just like and there's this big oaf behind him, me banging my head, falling over, tripping over wires, and there's like Nick like a little mouse going
Well,
through.
Nick knows that
Um,
place inside out, though. He's spent so much
Absolutely.
time there.
It's just
I love
it's
that.
in Marvel watching him just go. He
Yeah,
knows
it's great.
everything. So because he must have banged his head on the same place 100 times, and there's me clattering behind him and go, fucking slow down, because he walks so
Oh,
fast. And
brilliant.
but
Such good
yeah,
time.
Amnesia is my favorite club. It used to be Space, of course, but I think they've always been on a par. And to have your initiation for those years at Amnesia, you're just so grateful.
So grateful. So grateful.
Wow.
And again, I feel like there was so many people at that time, as you said, there was some great events happening, some great parties. So I was really surrounded by
The best.
really great people as well. Like
Yeah.
even Nick and Mark when, with Cream, like it was
Yeah.
amazing working with them and Johannes with Cocoon. And just all of the core Amnesia team at that time. It was, yeah, I really got to learn a lot from a lot of
Yeah,
people
I
and
bet.
from being thrown in at the deep end.
When we go to do our Amnesia gigs this year, Nick knows everyone there, and they're still there after all these
Yeah,
years.
that's it.
Yeah.
It's a family.
And that says so much about a business to me.
Mm,
If you have a business where it's like we have a club in Zurcher, Papaya. They've
yeah,
got this. They've had the same staff since they've opened in
really.
2002. I think like Sinisha, Ivan, one of the stage managers. I've forgotten their names, and Meadow still does some work with them. And so their core team, Sinisha, their core team has been there since it opened, like 20 years. And I find that really quite integral. Of
Yeah.
their business. And Amnesia, when we turn up in the car park, everyone's, hey, Nick. And these
Yeah.
are people that have been there for fucking decades, instead of when you
It's
go to
great.
another club and there's just new faces all the time. There's no continuity there.
Yeah, and that's what I love so much about Amnesia, that, it still has that real feeling of
Absolutely.
of family and of not going through huge changes and trying to adapt into something that, they're just trying to change. It's always stuck to what it is and what it always has been. And even like this sounds funny, but so this year I've been working at Amnesia again. Just a few times well, 2 or 3 times a month, hosting Boiler Room because they did the Boiler Room takeover at Amnesia. And when I go up to the press room, which back in 2000 and 2014 was like my little office, and where I probably crashed a lot of times on the sofa through the evenings, it still smells the same. It smells exactly the same, and I love that. I get really nostalgic when I go in because I'm like, it just smells exactly how it used to when I worked here. So yeah, it's cool. I love it. It's great. It's great.
Because I love it where I can just send something over to Amnesia and it's dealt with,
Yeah.
on email. I need this dealt with. Boom, it's done. And then
Yeah.
when we've got people like Susanna who does the production, Susanna?
Best. Yeah, of
Yeah, and yeah,
course. Know her
she goes,
very
yes,
well.
we've done the lasers are here and they're here, and we got to bring you, and she'll go, and we've done this for you as well, and this for you, and it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, this is gonna look shitting amazing, and it's just like it's just another day for her,
She's
Uh,
just so good.
and
I
and
love
and
Susanna.
and I because I've sent some images, like not images, but just like for Kevin and Perry, like I've sent some visuals over, and it was just like some of the bits were a bit too bright, and they didn't want it to blind the people in the club, so she just went and just got it all edited out without even telling me, and it was just done. And it was like, oh, by
Yeah,
the way, we
they're
did
great.
that, and it was just like really smooth and professional. And I was just like,
Yes.
that's how you do it. And I think there's a lot of businesses that can learn from that, and I hope one day I'll have a business where I've got people who work with me for 20 odd years. Have
Yeah.
you had so who have been some of the bigger names that you've interviewed? Because you
Ooh.
started pretty heavy with Carl
Yeah.
Cox on your second night.
Yeah. I mean, I think
Get much bigger than that, does it?
I mean,
In
doing
the
a Carl
music
Cox
industry?
Marco Carola sandwich was quite a big one. But I mean, I've done like interviewed Skrillex. I've interviewed I mean, from Skrillex to Paris Hilton, basically. When Paris did her stuff at her
Of course.
residency at Amnesia, but Nicole Mudabab, Adam Beyer, um who else? Charlotte DeWitt, Enrico San Giuliano, um Nicole, well, the people that I've had on my podcast this season, Kolsch, Groove Armada. mm, it's hard to think who else. Eats Everything, I've interviewed multiple times.
He sounds great.
Taco Asuna. Oh, Dan is a wonderful. Well, one thing I love about interviewing Dan is that every time I interview Eats Everything, it will always be a different conversation, and we'll find something different to talk about every time. So I never feel like, oh, I've interviewed him before. What am I going to talk about?
Yeah, yeah,
Because I
yeah.
know it will just be fun. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think by brands, because I used to at one point as well do a lot of interviews like by actual brands. So I would, for a few seasons, I would do all of Paradise's interviews backstage. So I'll do all of backstage stuff for them, and
Festival
um,
lineup.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's just
So
huge because
no,
that's what Nick Yates used to say. It's like putting on a festival every Wednesday.
it is. It's
It was
huge.
just like
It's
when they
massive.
first went there, it was because did it start with DC-10? It did, didn't it?
Yeah, it was DC-10, then went to
Paradise.
Amnesia,
That's right.
and then Universe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And I just looked at the lineups. I'm just like, my God, it is literally like a festival lineup.
I know.
Um,
It's mad.
so so off of the back of Amnesia, what did you start then getting like independent work? Did you start getting picked up by
Mm.
other channels and also before, can I just ask, with the Amnesia stuff, what language did you do it in?
It would mainly be in English, but then whenever I
Hmm.
had a Spanish guest, then I would do it in Spanish. So it would
Yeah,
just
and that'd
depend.
be subtitled.
Yeah, and then it would be subtitled. Yeah, and even when we did it in English, it would be subtitled into Spanish, because obviously, a lot of the Amnesia following it is Spanish. So yeah, I would be mainly English, but then I would just flick to
And all of this
Spanish.
content is still available on the YouTube channel on
It is,
Amnesia, I imagine.
unfortunately.
Isn't it crazy how you look back at some stuff and you're like,
Oh gosh, it's
oh.
awful. There's there are a few bits that are not on there anymore, but a lot of it, I mean, like, you can find DeMarco Carola, you can find Ricardo Villalobos, you can find Sven, you can find all of like the Together lot, like Chase and Status and Sub Focus and all that kind of artists. So yeah, there are quite a lot on there, but I don't tend to look back on them, because I'm just like,
I'm not,
why
I'm
did
not,
I
I'm not,
ask
I'm not,
that?
I'm not going to put the links in it. I won't put the links in the description. So if you
Thanks.
want to go and find them,
Yeah,
go and find them
you know where they
yourself.
are.
I usually put links quite happily. So yeah, sorry. So let's get back to this. So you must have been not poached, but you must have been seen by other people to do other things.
Yeah,
And then
because
obviously Instagram, TikTok, all this YouTube started really getting big. So people were wanting more video.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that was early 2013, 14, 15, 16. Instagram, it was, that was the whole streaming type thing. Was the going live
To-
thing was coming
totally.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Instagram was I think one of the first things I had to work on. But no, can you remember Instagram, like the first version of Instagram where there was like 3 filters and it was, I mean, it was nowhere as near to what it
Yeah,
is now.
it was all pictures as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it
And
was all, it was very much picture stuff.
the advent of TikTok changed Instagram forever,
Yeah.
because they've reverted everything over to Reels.
Yeah.
So it is. So what did you end up doing besides Amnesia after that?
So Ibiza Global Radio were looking for a presenter in 2014. So I then had this mad idea that I could combine doing Amnesia, which I basically lived at the club, with doing the radio station. In them 3 hours that I spoke about in between, I'll just go to the radio station and carry on presenting. So I did Ibiza Global Radio, and that was really cool because I had like prime time slot there as well. And the way that the radio stations worked in Ibiza were that a brand, so let's say for example Music On, they would rent or have an hour show every Friday, and then they would bring in a guest every week to
I get it.
play.
Yeah.
So I would host the Music On radio show, and then I had like Pasha radio show, and I would do Together radio show, Resistance radio show. So I would have every week different artists coming through, and they would play, and loads of people would come over, and it was just always a bit of a party. And then I would interview them, and that was so much fun. So that was like my first steps into radio, and I loved doing that.
Would that be
And so I did
Spanish?
that.
In Spanish? That
Yeah, a
was
lot
in
of that was
Spanish.
in Spanish.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is Spanish
Yeah.
and English.
Of
It's a bit of
course.
a mix with that.
Yes.
Again, depending on the artist. And then I just started from there to get quite a few freelance jobs in. Like with DJ Mag, I did their Best of British one year. Corona, they did this like festival thing called Corona Sunset. So that year I did some hosting for them. And then it just kind of, moved on from that. And it's always, been in the music space. I started working with Amazon Music and their Primavera Sound Festival, which was more live TV, which was the first time that I'd done that. But it was always just kind of word of mouth, knowing somebody from something else, and and getting new jobs. So I have always been very much a person that just has always said yes to any job that comes in, because you just never know what doors it's going to open for you next. Even if I was just so burnt out and couldn't do
You
it, I'll be
never
like, I'll
know.
do it, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And so that's just how I've worked, really.
I knew you'd worked for Amnesia. I remember because I think I told you that I got hacked once, and you said, "I think we got hacked at Amnesia once," or something like that.
Yes.
Did you? Yeah, and you mentioned something about Amnesia then, but I didn't realise you did all the interviewing there. This is all new to me, kind of. And so,
There you
but I knew you did
go.
this. Yeah, so I'm learning here, and I remember you doing the social media because we had a conversation about hacking at one point
Yeah.
years ago, and it is nothing worse. You're like, fuck,
My
millions of
God.
people. Yeah, I know.
I knew
I've had
that
it.
it'd be my fault as well, because I remember I'd remembered that something had popped up on my screen, which I'd stupidly accepted, thinking, or maybe I'm doing I'm doing the right thing here. And then I remember going in the shower, coming out the shower, and then there was just loads of rubbish posted all over this Facebook page, and I remember having a meltdown, like a meltdown.
It's
Oh my
if
God, what
anyone
have I done?
it, how bad did you feel when that happened? I mean,
I felt horrendous.
I felt I lost 6 kilos of weight when it happened to me. It happened to an artist. I won't say who, because I felt so responsible. And this is their
Totally.
career, and it was so public as well, because it got hacked. I didn't do anything wrong. I actually got hacked through my business manager. There was a weakness in my business manager. We run ads.
Yeah.
They got in through my business meta manager through somebody else's account, which was a weak spot at the time. So I hadn't actually let anybody in. But I felt, because they posted all of this just rubbish, just it was just it was just shit,
Yeah, no, it's
luckily
horrible.
and luckily it wasn't porn, because if it was porn they would have taken it down, they would have just deleted the site. And I'm like, this guy's got like 250,000 people on his
Oh no.
page. If they start doing porn, he's going to lose his page,
Oh my
and
God.
I would just honest, and it took 6 weeks for us to fix it in the end,
I
because
know.
it didn't just happen to him, it happened to like 1, 2, 3, 4 other pages for me.
It's
So
a horrible, horrible feeling, honestly. But
yeah.
you live and you learn. And now anything
So
ever comes
anybody
up, and I'm like, nope.
so anybody out there, if you haven't got 2FA or all your security up to date with Meta, and you're looking after people's socials or even your own, just do it.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I work with some clients, and I literally can just get in straight away, and I'm like, why have you got no security? And these are people with like millions of fans. What's the biggest difference between live radio and then the recorded interviews?
I mean, well, I just love the adrenaline of doing anything live.
Yeah,
Um, so that feeling of, you've got one shot, and whatever happens, that is the way it's going to be.
yeah.
So there's always that excitement of doing live radio, or doing hosting a live event. Um and the one thing that I've always loved about radio is that, when you're hosting something or you're doing something on camera, you're explaining where you are. So if I'm reporting from a festival, for example, people can see where you are, and they can hear the music, and you're probably interviewing someone. But when you do that on radio, you have to explain what you can see and what you can feel and what it smells like, and who you're surrounded by, and everybody in their head will get such a different picture of what's happening. I think that's something really beautiful about that.
Yep,
Um,
senses.
yeah, and I think
Senses,
it's really
explain
cool.
senses. Yeah. That was
Yeah,
one of the things I was first taught about content, is try and explain what something smells like or tastes like, or
totally.
and it gives an interview or a piece of content so much more depth.
Totally,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think that like the main difference for me is that it's that everyone in their head has got a totally different picture of what I'm actually talking about right now. And then just on top of that is the fact that something live is just always fun. It's cool. If you're doing
You
a
never know what's
video
going to
and
go wrong.
you never know what's going to go wrong, and it can do, and it's the worst feeling ever. But sometimes it makes what makes the show. So. Uh, yeah, it's I love it. I love doing stuff that's live.
So you
Um,
wanted to do this since you were 5, right?
mm,
So did you used to practice with your hairbrush and
yeah.
or and yes, got you there. And who are your heroes? Who are your presenting heroes? You
So I wanted to be Cat Deely. Cat Deely was my hero.
ah,
I loved
I used
her.
to
I
love
mean,
Cat D. Big
yeah,
crush. Big crush
yeah,
on Cat Deely. Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
So I
What's she
used to,
doing these days?
she's actually
Is she still
presenting
doing?
this morning on ITV.
Is she? I don't watch a lot of TV. I
Yeah,
never forget one time. I don't know whether this was true, but this is what I thought in my head. Kat Deedy is a very attractive woman. I mean,
yeah,
beautiful, stunning, stunning. She used to do Saturday mornings, children's telly, didn't she, with the
yes,
music?
she did. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Now I remember this because I used to watch it. One day she interviewed Britney Spears in her peak. It was a peak Britney Spears years, and Britney made Cat Deely look plain, and I was
really,
just like, have they done this on purpose? Because Britney just looked so stunning compared to Cat Deely, and I'm like, have they dumbed her down a bit? And I was convinced of it, because I was like, how could Cat Deely
maybe.
look like,
I
and I'm just like,
know.
there's probably,
When you see her so
and
glamorous and big.
yeah, and it was just like, I'm sure she's not that much more attractive than Britney Spears, but she's more. She's got her entourage with her. The makeup must be like this, and the lighting has got to be better, and
Yeah.
all of that stuff. But do you ever get that with when you're interviewing someone? Do you ever get issues with the entourages
Um,
or
yeah.
management? Sometimes, yeah, yeah, yeah,
I've had in the past before, and I won't say names, where I've had to actually stop an interview and just say that I'm not carrying on this interview because your behavior is ridiculous, or, or the people that you're with are. Um,
yeah,
and I think
yeah.
that's something I've definitely learned with over time. As I said, when I was a lot younger, and as I mentioned earlier, I would have waited until 6 a.m. to interview an artist. Now I'm like, you know what, either we get it done at the time that we have said that we're going to get it done, and if I see that you're in like an absolute, like, in no state at all to be talking, then we're also not going to be doing the interview. And if you're going to be disrespectful or make me look stupid,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
also not going to do the interview. But I think that just comes with time and from learning. So yeah, I've definitely had issues with that. um
Entourages and managements can cause problems. That's why I wanted to bring that Britney Spears thing up with you, because it just looked like she had different lighting on her, and it just like she didn't want to be overshadowed by the host.
Totally.
Yeah, and
Totally. No, it's
yeah,
funny one. It is. It's strange. I always remember interviewing Paris Hilton once, and she is really, actually really lovely. She is
I've heard
very,
that.
very
I've
nice.
heard that.
She's
Yeah,
very lovely. But I always remember being the cameras off, and then as soon as the moment the camera came on, her voice changed. Her voice changed, and the way that she sat and the way that she spoke, and I was like, wow, like, this is so different. So it is sometimes, and I
trained
don't
into
think
her.
this is so, I think this is more with like big, big famous people.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
it doesn't so happen so much in dance music, but I do always remember that so much, being like, you didn't just talk like that about 3 seconds ago.
People at that level, just say like Paris Hilton, the Britney Spears, they've been doing it since they were so small, like Britney Disney Club, and they just turn on a switch, don't they?
They do.
You
They totally
know,
turn on a switch.
but
One of
on
my no, I was just going to say, going back to Paris Hilton, and I interviewed her another time, and this time she asked if we could do it at her house in Ibiza. So me and the camera crew turned up at her house, and she was sat in her pajamas eating a bowl of peas with ketchup before we did the interview.
that's so weird.
Like, this is the
Oh,
most like non-Paris thing ever. Like, you would never have expected that from her. I would have expected her with like sushi out and like in her gown, and she's
caviar,
just on her
yeah, yeah.
pajamas, yeah, eating peas with ketchup. And she was like, can you just give me like 5 minutes? And I was like, yeah, girl, you eat your peas. Don't worry, I'll wait. It's fine.
Is she actually really down to earth?
She's lovely. She's so nice. She's really
Yeah, yeah.
nice. Yeah,
Oh, that's
really
good.
nice.
It's good to hear, because she gets a fucking hard press, doesn't she?
She does. She does. But
Yeah, people
yeah,
love to run the girls down,
they
and
do.
I have I don't know if you've noticed, but I've had a lot of girl DJs, female DJs on here, and I think
Nice.
loads on from Lisa Lashes, Amber
I
D,
saw.
and loads of and it's just been, and yeah, and the shit they get online. Whereas before online, they felt more included in the scene, because
Mm,
there was like the tidy girls, there was a lot of girls
yeah.
playing. But now it's all online. There's this,
People are horrible.
it's misogyny goes on to online. Oh, it's a girl. She's only playing because she's got her tits out, blah, blah, blah. And they never used to have that. Spinning fucking
No,
vinyl, it's unessential, you know?
totally.
And
Well,
so it's a
yeah,
kind of modern
it's
phenomenon.
it is. I've had that in the past. People saying, "Oh, she's only interviewing because she slept with him," or or she's that, stuff like that. Like, really horrible comments. Yeah, people are just awful, and they're just keyboard warriors. And it does at the beginning, it does. It's very hurtful, but now you just have to learn to just not read comments like
Yeah.
that and just not let it get to you. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
I've had all
working. I
sorts of
totally
things
agree.
like that.
I'm working with a DJ at the moment, and she's flying, and because she's now started to succeed, the jealous people are starting to crop up on her feed
Oh
and things
yeah.
like that. And I said to her, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah,
It's only
it
going to
is.
get worse. You know, you
Yeah,
got to get your fix. You got to pull your trousers up now. Your big girl's pants, because it's going to get a lot worse.
it
And
does.
I was speaking to
Unfortunately, yeah.
Amber. I was speaking to Amber D yesterday, and she said, yeah, she's only really had this issue since she's been online, where she's been
Mm,
streaming, and she gets the comments that she gets online because she's a girl are just atrocious.
yeah.
But she's great because she actually outs them and screenshots them and publishes them
Yeah,
and
that's what you've got to
everything.
do. Yeah,
Yeah,
fuck 'em.
yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
So, do you find your approach changes when you're hosting English versus Spanish interviews?
I don't think so. I think I don't think my approach changes. I think it just totally depends on who I'm interviewing and what it's for.
Yeah,
So, you know, I always just want to make sure that whoever I'm interviewing just feels as comfortable as they possibly can. And that's been my biggest learning from interviewing, is that, sometimes you can put a camera in front of somebody, and as soon as that camera goes, the nerves kick in and you won't get the same
yeah, yeah.
conversation out of them than
I've
you would
noticed
if
that.
you were
Yeah,
off camera.
even doing these, even doing
Yeah,
these, I've seen
exactly.
some people just like what one sentence. So, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting. So I think my approach has always been very much more focused on just sitting down with whoever I'm talking to beforehand, and making them feel really comfortable and just kind of breaking the ice a little bit. And if that person says to me, listen, I'm a bit nervous and I would much prefer this to do this in Spanish, then that's fine. I will do it in Spanish. And most producers or whoever you're working with will always, say you do whatever language is best for them. I've hosted Primavera Sound, as I mentioned before, for the last couple of years for Amazon Prime, and that was live television. Um, and that was going out to like 3 million people. So a lot of the artists that were coming on were very nervous before coming on, because, you standing on front of a stage or something, on a stage in front of a lot of people is one thing, but then speaking for some people is really uncomfortable. So the producers would always say to us in our earpiece, as soon as this person comes on, if they want to do it in Spanish, that's fine. Let them do it in Spanish. There will be some kind of like quick translation that will come up as subtitles on the screen. So I think the approach just always depends on what it's for and who you're talking to, rather than, what language to do it in. It's just making people feel as comfortable as possible.
Curiosity with the live stuff you've done at Amazon, with swearing and stuff like that. What time was it going out? Could you
Well,
swear
this
on
is like
Amazon?
7 p.m.
You see, you couldn't before the watershed.
No, no, we
So,
wouldn't.
what would have to brief them? Don't swear and don't do this, because some people just can't help it. It's natural.
It comes up and it's happened. It does happen. We just
Yeah,
try and say before chill. But yeah, it can happen,
yeah.
and there's not much you can do about it, unfortunately.
But what's your proudest moment been then so far?
I think my proudest moment was actually introducing introducing Underworld at Boiler Room London this year.
Boiler Room London, you know the name, you know the lazy. Put your hands together for the iconic Underworld.
Wow.
There was a sea of people in front of me. I couldn't even see the end. And I was really like, I was actually quite taken back they'd actually asked me to do it. Because when I got there, I was saying, why are they asking me to do this? Like, surely there should be somebody, really big doing this. And it was a really, really, I felt very proud, very overwhelmed to be able to introduce, such legends at Boiler Room London, closing out this incredible festival. And yeah, I was very nervous, but good nerves, because it was just getting me really hyped up.
Yeah. The energy. Yeah.
Yeah, and the adrenaline after, like, saying those words, I was like, "Please put your hands together for Underworld," and then the whole of this, festival just roared, and then they came out on stage, and it was just insane, and even when I look back on it now, I think it's incredible. So that was probably one of my proudest moments doing that. Um And then also, I'm just so proud of actually just seeing the podcast grow and, of working with different brands on the podcast now as well. And just, having some of the guests that I've had and just felt really grateful and honored to have some of the guests that I've had
Mm.
on and wanting to actually be part of Can You Put Me on Guest List. So I feel proud of that as well, because it's something that I've had to, you know, put a lot of time into, a lot of
Oh,
effort into, as you will
tell me
know.
about it. For whoever is
um,
out there who wants to do a podcast every single week or a
oh,
series,
it's
it
hard.
is a lot of work. It is a lot of
It's a
work.
lot of
And the thing is,
work.
as you know, I run an editing company and I don't outsource my edits. I don't trust my editors because I
Me
just
neither.
they can't get it the right way that I want it,
I
and I've
know.
tried so many times. So I can spend up to 20 hours a week doing the podcast sometimes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's people
Yeah.
don't understand. And like I speak to bloggers, like Dwayne Muffin and people like that
Mm,
in Ibiza. And even for like he does his YouTubes in the winters and he says, yeah, I mean, I could do 20-minute piece of content. It would take me 10 hours.
I know.
And,
It's
and people don't
crazy.
understand that,
It's crazy. It takes
with or
me
without
such a
AI.
long time. Totally. And that's it, and I totally understand what you mean when you don't want to work with editors, because I'm the same. I'm very precious over how this is going to be
Yeah,
edited and what I want from it and what clips I want from it. But, and also doing it in person, I found quite difficult, because it's trying to organize two people in the same place. And, then there's questions, a lot of these the bigger artists as well. We want questions approved by management, and then you want the video approved by
oh
management.
yes,
You've got to do the
yes.
marketing, and you've got to do the covers, and you've got to do the description, and you've got to think of the title and how you're going to market it. And there's so much that goes into it. So yeah, I think that's also they're my two proud things, I think, that I'm most proud of.
Good on you, good on you. Because I mean, especially running a successful YouTube channel, there's so much more to it. I mean, even just the interlinking at the back end and the way you set out a playlist and the way you do your thumbnails and the way you do this, it all matters, And it's a huge learning curve, but it takes so long. And no one tells you how to do it. It's
No,
just trial and
nobody.
error.
Totally, it is.
Yes,
And like, I remember my first ever episode that I did. It was I had one of these little Zoom recorders,
I had one of
and it
them
was with.
with the two
Do
little
you
things that come out.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly. And it was with one of them, and it was with Rob Yilmaz, who worked with together. And we sat in his house somewhere in London, and we sat in the living room. And I put the recorder in the middle, and you can hear like fire engines going off and people talking, and there's so much noise behind it. And I had absolutely no idea what I was doing with this. Edited it on GarageBand, didn't do any intro, nothing, and just put it up. So then every season I feel like I've learned a little bit more, and it's getting, a bit tidier and a bit neater. But I love my podcast. I love just talking to people, and the whole reason I started the podcast was just because I wanted to learn more about what other people did in the industry.
Me
As at
too.
that point, I'd only really interviewed DJs. I was constantly interviewing
Yeah,
DJs. And I
yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
as much as I love this, there's so much more behind it, and there's so many
Exactly.
more other people, and it's not just them that make this scene. There's a lot of hardworking people and businesses that go into making dance music what it is. So that was the whole reason, and it was just a great excuse to network and to meet people. And it still is that. That is the whole purpose for me, is for me to learn about what people do and to meet people. And yeah, I do, I love it. And and anyone that has a podcast, I'm sure, will agree, it's just such a nice
Have you made
space
new
to be able to have.
friends? You've
I
made new
have made a
friends.
lot of new friends.
It's me too.
Lot.
Do you know what? I think I could actually pick up the phone to pretty much anyone I've interviewed now and just have a good old
Exactly.
chat with them. And
Exactly.
my theory and my principle behind the podcast that I did is I was doing podcast production for other people. And I was just like, around about March, I'll do my own one, thinking it would be easy, And I learned the hard way that wasn't going to be able to give it to my team, and then I could only do it online because I live remotely and a long way away from everywhere. I had to do it
Yeah.
differently, and I had to put a lot of B-roll in to make sure. Oh, it was just such a head fuck. But then I really wanted to show the other side of the industry, like yourself. Yes,
Mm.
I do interview a lot of DJs, but I also interview cameramen. I even photographers like Mark de Groot. I interview people in recovery who are workers
Yes.
in Ibiza. I interview all sorts of people across the spectrum of dance music, and that's why I wanted to speak to you yourself, because you are an important part of that ecosystem.
Mhm.
And I've got so many other people that I want to speak to as well. It's not all about the DJs at the end of the day.
No, no, totally. And I think it's important also for people that want to start a career in dance music to learn about, what other people do and what career paths they may have, because, you know, people might not realize that they can have certain jobs or can be a presenter in dance music, or there's I think it's important to be able to help people learn and decide on what they would like to do, and and to be able to share experience and knowledge with other people.
Absolutely. I've got people coming in soon who are entertainers, who have entertainment companies. I've got people coming in who are club dancers. I've got
Yeah,
ex club dancers coming in from Manumission. I've
amazing, that'll be
got
great. I love that.
yeah. You'll probably know the lady, one of the ladies. I'm not going to mention her name yet, but she's wonderful. She was Manumission for 10 years, and
Has
I,
she been on
oh,
my podcast?
I'm not too sure actually.
Is she Irish?
No, she's not. She's
Okay,
not.
all right,
That
different
different
person
one.
then.
This is a different one. It's a different one. And I'm also wanting to get some of the owners of the old brands. I want to
Yeah, I
interview
love
some of
that.
them. I would love to. I would love to get Mike and Claire from say Manumission. I think that would be my ultimate dream, just to speak to them about the creativity behind that wonderful, wonderful show that they did. Because I think nowadays the music industry has gone lot towards, like, if you look at Universal, some of these big events at Ushuaia, they are shows, but somehow Manumission, they had a proper party and a show, and they managed to get that balance. Obviously there was no camera phones then, and the drugs were probably a lot better. But but it's I'd love to speak to those two about what actually went into the creativity. How the hell did they think of all this stuff? Because
Yeah,
I
it'll be
think,
a really
and
good
obviously
episode.
Andy was there as well. But I think I'd love to speak to the Mike and Claire about that,
Yeah,
because that would be a fascinating story, and maybe even like the guy who, what's his name from DC10, who started DC10?
Antonio.
Antonio. Yeah, I'd love to speak to him as well about like how that was born, because I was there
Yeah,
when it was started, and I was a kid, and it was just gross in there. It was horribly gross and just disgusting, and everyone was just, oh, it was horrible. People wringing their t-shirts out with sweat.
must have
It
been
was
a
just,
good party.
oh man, yeah. But yeah, I'm just going off a bit now. So, would you say that your job is anything to do with like music journalism as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of journalism that needs to go in for the preparation for a podcast or for an interview or for a mini series or whatever it is that you're doing. And as I said before, I think that part of what we are doing is documenting. Um, so yeah, I definitely think it is journalism.
What other territories do you go over? Do you go into? Do you go over to Dubai and places like that?
So I did a couple of years ago have a bit of a I don't know how this really happened, but I did a lot of the of Middle East, a lot of the Middle East. And this only started because I was put on a panel. Was it an IMS or ADE? And it was about the music scene in the Middle East. And from there, I was then invited to go and speak in Saudi Arabia at XP conference. That was like their second year of the conference, and they wanted to take people over to talk about their careers and experiences. So I went over to do that. And I was absolutely blown away by the scene in Saudi Arabia because, you know, as you will already know, the scene wasn't really there. It wasn't a scene because they were never allowed to perform in public up until 2016 or 17. So it was totally new, and it was the fastest growing scene in the world, and I just thought that was so exciting and inspiring to see how many artists there were that had been living under this, you know, proper underground scene without being able to actually show to the rest of their country and culture what it is that they'd been creating. And then suddenly all of, you know, everything opens up. So it was really interesting to be part of that. And so I did XP conference for 2 years and Middle Beast Festival. And then I was invited to go and speak at IMS Dubai, which I also did. So I've loved learning about their scene and have made a lot of connections from that side as well. In fact, I've had quite a few people on the podcast. I recently had a duo called Dish Dash. They were kind of like the pioneers in the Saudi scene. So that's I just find it really interesting to talk about other scenes around the world because we have so much of Ibiza documented, so much of the UK and, you know, Germany, but there's a lot of countries around the world that not, you know, you don't know so much or hear so much about their scenes. So I love that side of it as well.
Because you must be one of the most experienced presenters in the industry now. You've been doing this for 10, 13 years in music?
Yeah,
Wow,
13.
thinking it like that.
I know.
Oh,
I was actually going to make a list this week of everything that I've try and just get together all of the content I've ever created. Like I have a hard drive just full of interviews. And I wanted to just go through everything and see what I have that I've got, you know, because I've got a lot of written interviews as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird when you think about it like that because time just goes so quickly, doesn't it? And sometimes you never really think, you never sit back and think, oh, what have I done? Who have I interviewed? And
you
but
should put it
yeah,
all on your YouTube. You should set up a playlist and put it all
I
on your
know,
YouTube.
I know, I
That's
know. I'm
gold.
good.
That's
I think I'm going to
absolute
start to cut
gold.
down. I'm going to start cutting down some reels actually,
Yeah.
and of some of like these old interviews.
Nostalgia works so much. I
Mm.
mean, do you remember this in 2015 or something? And I've found that the older stuff really cuts through. Because funny enough, I wanted to speak to you about this. I see some modern day podcasts with modern DJs who've only just come into the scene. And I see they don't get a lot of reach or interest
Mm.
because I don't think they've got the background quite yet. They've got a couple of tracks out, you know, but I just don't see that they're that not, I can't say interesting, but
No, they just don't have that much to speak about and experience. And I
yeah,
know where you're coming from.
I'm
I know
not
exactly what
belittling
you.
them at all. Obviously, I'm just saying that they've got their big names, but
Yeah,
when you see the interview, you're like, hmm,
yeah. I know exactly what you mean. In fact, I get a lot of pitches from publicists saying, "Hey, would love for you to consider so and so on your podcast. You know, he's recently had this hit and
yeah,
he's breaking through." And first of all, I never ever want to interview somebody just because it is part of their promo campaign. Like there has to be a long story because I'm not going to talk to you about one track and then that's it. There has to
yeah,
be so much more
absolutely,
behind it. And secondly, if it's somebody that's just blowing up now, I'm not saying that you don't have a story because that, you know, you may do,
everyone
but
does, yeah.
sometimes, yeah, but sometimes it's nicer just to wait a little bit longer and then interview that person because then you can talk all about that experience of that track that blew up and how you got there. But if it's something that's happening right then in that moment, I sometimes find that you get a little bit stuck on conversation. So I always
Yeah,
try and avoid actually artists that are just blowing up right now and just give them a
yeah,
bit of time to,
because your audience doesn't identify with them. I think
no,
it goes, oh, they're XYZ. I've heard of them. They're really cool. But when they start talking, they're like,
yeah.
they're cool, but there's then the drop offs, and when you get a drop off really quickly on your podcasts, it sends bad signals back to the podcast, so you get less engagement, you get less reach. I think
Exactly.
guests have to have a rich story.
Yeah,
Do you find that
totally.
as well with your interviews? You much prefer to speak to the old school, the ones who have been around
Yeah.
a bit longer?
I'll tell you something that's really interesting, actually. This summer, Loco Dice's team contacted me to interview Dice in Miami because he had a new his album Purple Jam was just about to come out, and they wanted a long form interview done. So that, would you be interested? I was like, yeah, definitely, 100%. And we have crossed paths quite a bit in the past, but it's not somebody that I would sit and have a conversation with. Anyway, so I prepared all of this interview, and I sat down with his team and we worked out exactly what it was that he wanted from this interview. And he hadn't remembered, but I had interviewed him in 2013. And so I opened the interview with, I don't know if you remember this, but I interviewed you in 2013, and since then, that was 12 years ago, so much has happened. And he instantly was like, I remember that. Like, at first, when we first met, he hadn't remembered who I
You
was.
didn't
And then as
clock,
soon as I said
yeah.
it, he was like, Amnesia used to have like the really long hair. And I was like, yes.
Loco Dice. I don't know if you remember this, but I interviewed you when I was like 17 years old. So this is like 13 years ago.
Oh my God.
At Amnesia. It was 2013. It was one of my first ever interviews, and I have never interviewed you since, and I've had a lot of questions over the years.
You know, I remember that.
Really?
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. And why I'm remembering it, it's funny because I just saw a clip, you know how it is. Sometimes you talk about things and I think this telephone is listening to you and then it brings up something.
Yeah.
No, but I remember it. And because we didn't do that many interviews back in the days. And I thought you from Amnesia.
Yeah. Well, that is how it all started. And there's been, since then, so many times I've thought I would love to interview him again, because there's so much of your story that I don't know and would love to know, which is why we're here now.
Let's do it.
And it was so nice to then look back on both interviews and see how he has changed as an artist, has so much to tell. Because when I interviewed him back in 13, he'd kind of just done that transition from hip hop into electronic music, and had a story to tell, but not as much had happened until now. So it really made me think about how important it is to have these stories, and for sometimes to interview an artist and then see how far they've come 10, 15 years later. I find that really fascinating. So it was really cool to compare both interviews and have so much to talk about that had happened in that full space of time.
That's amazing. I remember him, right, when DC-10 Circo Loco first started. And this is the days of Cirillo, Loco Dice, Luciano, Joe Mills. Who else was Matthias Tanzan, Timo Maas, all of the big hitters, and they used to dance in front of the DJ booth with everyone. They were not big hitters there. They were just these crazy fuckers playing this minimal music that no one else was playing. It was just them on a Monday, and all the workers used to pile down, and they used to just rave with everyone, and Joe Mills used to be diving into the crowd, bless her, and I think it was when Charlie Chester was involved then, and yes, I mean that's what I remember. And then I see him doing a interview the other day, 20 odd years later, and I can't remember what it was about. I think it was about the whole state of the music industry at the moment, and how far and how different it is now. So it was a really good time. I like all that the going back in time.
Me too.
So do you find it difficult running a podcast and juggling your other work as well?
Yep. I do struggle. you know, as we said before, it is a lot to think about, and especially when you have a calendar to follow. And you know, now I work with sponsorship, so it's not like it's just me anymore. It's I've got a sponsor that you know, they've we have a timeline and we have deadlines, and I can't now just be like, instead of getting it out on a Tuesday, I'm going to get it out on Thursday. I used to do that
Right.
all the time. I used
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah, yeah,
think,
yeah,
"Oh, if I
yeah.
haven't got it, it's fine." But I can't do that anymore because, you know, I'm working with a brand. So
Are you
I
weekly
do.
now? Are you every week?
I'm
Every
weekly.
week you're
I'm
going out, are
once a
you?
week.
Yeah.
I'm once a week. Um,
And what's your publishing time?
I
What,
post every Tuesday at 6 p.m. My podcast goes out.
and
Um,
you're on the dot? Because I used to go like, oh, I
More
might
or
just do it
less. I
Tuesday,
try.
Wednesday, Thursday. But it's another really good sign now for the algorithm if you post at the
Yeah,
same time every week. So I've
exactly.
been,
They like
I've had
it.
to experiment with all of these different times over the last 6 months, and I've finally found my time. You never guess when
You
it is.
cracked it.
Midday on a Sunday.
Really?
Yeah, midday on a Sunday. It's worked.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's. I think it's because my demographic's a bit older, and they're all
Mm,
just chilling out from the weekend. And then I let it, and then I've noticed that it builds up through the day, and then people settle down at night, and then you get that second spike
yeah,
on a Sunday, and leading into Monday and Monday morning, it's getting that momentum, and people are going to work.
that's it.
But I've tried Wednesdays, I've tried Thursdays, I've tried different times, and
How
uh,
interesting. It's funny, isn't it,
yeah,
how it can vary? It is interesting. But
that was
yeah,
Chat
no.
GPT for you. Recommended that. Chat
Oh,
GPT said,
really?
"Give it a go on a Sunday," and I was like, "Nope, I'm not doing that." They go,
And
"Go
you
on,
did, and
do
it
it."
worked.
Yeah,
Very, very interesting.
yeah. So, but it's really good to keep it at the same time all the time. And
Mm,
where do you want to go with your career? Do you want to just stay with music, or would you love to be on live TV doing like? I'm not saying
mm.
dancing with the stars or whatever it's bloody called, but whether it's dancing on ice.
But yeah, yeah, I
Would you
know what
like
you
to do?
mean.
Would you like to do that sort of TV? Would that be you?
Do you know what? One of thing I've always wanted to do is A Place in the Sun.
Oh, what a job!
I love that. I always have
Anthea
said I would love to do.
Turner.
Yeah, I just love it. And I could be out in Spain and I could, you know, show people around houses, and I love anything like that. I don't know, you know, I've kind of I love working in this industry, and I think once you've been in something for so long, and you know you know what you're doing, and
Yeah.
it's nice. And like even this morning I've had a couple of calls about things happen in 2026, and like opportunities that may come from different projects and presenting things, and I think, oh yeah, that's going to be so, like, that's so excited. So I still get really excited about anything new and jobs, and you know, content ideas, and how we can get, you
Mm,
know, if a brand has a certain objective or something they need to get out of that artist, like how can I do it, and what content and what questions. And I love all of that process. And so I think, yes, I will probably always be somehow involved in this, and I will still have my podcast. um and but would I want to do other things? I mean, yeah, I do. I work for another company called BOTB, which has nothing to do with music. It is a
love what
it's
you do for that.
I-
Please explain. Please explain what you do.
it is
I've been
such a
dying to
fun
ask
job.
this.
So
So
basically, it's called, so it's BOTB, Best of the Best, and it is a competition platform. So people buy tickets, and we give away luxury cars, sports cars, supercars, and houses. So 2 to 3 times a week, I basically have to go and knock on somebody's door and tell them that they've just won a Lamborghini and £50,000 or a £1.3 million house, and it's amazing. It's the most random job ever. It's great, and it's
that's
just
just what a
it
feeling.
it's such a nice feeling knowing that you're changing somebody's life and just knocking on somebody's door, and you know they've got the news of the lifetime. So I love doing that, and I do that a few times a week here in the UK. We travel. It's quite going. This actually ties in with your last question. With do I find it hard to balance everything? I do, because also this job that I have, we never know where the winners are until 24 hours before.
Uh,
So they could say to me, right, tomorrow morning you're going to Edinburgh. So it's really hard to kind of plan out my days. And I'd said this to you even when we were trying to plan the podcast. I'm finding it quite hard to, have a
yeah,
bit of a
yeah,
schedule,
yeah,
but it's worth it. And I just have to be very organized with the rest of my work and everything else that I do to make sure everything is on time. Um, but no, it's great. I absolutely love it. And it's a nice little balance as well to get, still doing my music stuff and then sometimes doing stuff in another industry. So it's fun. It's a really
yeah.
fun job. Yeah.
And also, I think when you've got a crazy lifestyle, you then look at your podcast, which is the podcast is the one thing that will always be your hub.
Yes.
And I think you look at that and you go, right, how am I going to make this more efficient? How can I
Mm,
edit this more efficiently? And how can I get this so I it's everything else works around it? Because I think they're going to become YouTube's going to become more and more powerful over the next 5 years.
yeah.
And yours is all organic as well, isn't it?
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, you don't push paid media on. I don't push paid media. I don't.
Do now and again I will now and again. I have tried it out, but mainly it's organic. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the stage that it just micro communities, building a micro
Yeah.
community that really loves your work is so much more powerful than having 50,000 views that you paid for,
Yeah.
because they're not into your world. They're not there to see you. Um,
Yeah.
and I know of many channels and many people running, people with under 1,000 subscribers who are making serious money because they've got this micro organism community
Mhm.
of people that are banging to their product and their stuff. And that is why YouTube are favoring the smaller channels at the moment. So I think this
Yeah.
having to have hundreds of millions of followers is kind
It
of
doesn't
that's
matter.
it's the past now, you know.
Yeah.
It's more about who's clicking through to your stuff and how long
Yeah.
people are going to be listening and watching for. Because at the
Totally.
end of the day, all these companies want to do is run ads. So if people aren't on your
Literally.
content for long, then they're not going to run those ads.
It's community building. Just like with anything, you need to build a community around it. And, there's people that have listened to my podcast from the very beginning and still listen to it now. And, that's who you're creating for, really, not just somebody that's
Yeah,
somewhere in India watching
I
your
don't, I don't,
podcast.
I really wouldn't. I'm not too. I don't even look at the numbers anymore. Really,
Yeah.
I know I like reading the comments. I like interacting with the comments. I think that's a really important part of it. Um, and obviously the algorithm goes through very funny ups and downs, and however old your channel is as well, it affects certain things. Um, but anyway, what obviously the podcast is called One More Tune. Do you have any? You've got a lot of tunes behind you, a lot of vinyl. Do you
We
have
try
any
and get.
one
Oh,
more tune? I hate asking this question, and I'm obviously
it's such a hard one.
I know, isn't it?
Um, I think I would have to go for something that's a bit nostalgic and something that would remind me of. So my mum and dad listened to a lot of music, and over a track growing up that has always sticks to me and always makes me very happy is George Benson, "Give Me the Night," and it always reminds me a lot of my dad.
Ah,
And I think I would probably go for that, to be honest, because I can just
awesome.
picture him in my head going, "One more tune."
I hate asking that question now, but it's when I thought, oh, we do one more time, I'll just do a one more tune
No, I
podcast.
like it. I think it's
And
great. You can do like a cut up of like all of your guests, and it can be, all of their answers.
yeah, we could do. I've got some ideas as well. It's like, I think I'm going to ask the guest what will be the first question for the next guest.
I do that on my podcast.
Oh, do
I
you?
call
Do
it
you?
past. Yeah, I do. But I'll give you a tip for this. Always remember to write it down and remember what you're going to ask. Because the amount of times I've gone into the next interview and gone, we're going to play past the question, but I can't actually remember what the next question is. And also make sure they're not cheeky. I once did this in Miami a few years ago, and I was playing past the question, and I asked Hot Since 82 what his next question was, and he came up with something a bit silly, and it was something sexual, and I was like, I can't ask Kerry Chandler that question.
It might have been you that I'd got the idea from, but I thought it was just such a good idea at the time.
It's so fun. You should do it. It's really good. I love it.
I think another Bartlett thing. They write things down in a book, don't they, or something?
Yes, yeah, they do.
A piece of advice or something like that, or
Yeah, they
but,
give advice. They ask for advice, I think. Yeah.
But he's monetized it. You can buy it.
Really?
Yeah,
Ooh.
he's made it a monetizable product. So the last question of the series of the podcast goes into something that's written and can be downloaded for like £2 or £3.
That's such a good idea. So my
Is
last
genius.
question on my podcast is, what is your guest list rule? Because obviously the podcast is called Can You Put Me a Guest List? So maybe
Yeah.
I could make a book out of guest list.
Best blags.
Yeah, yeah, guest blag. How to get a guest list.
Yeah, no, obviously Stephen Bartlett is a bit of a pioneer when it comes to things like that. And I actually know Steve. He probably doesn't know me anymore, but I knew him from Manchester when he had Social Chain. And before, when he was just doing Social Chain with, I think it was Ash Jones. And he'd come in and I met him in one of the offices that we were working at, and he was doing a talk at the time. And it's well before. So I've followed his journey through what he's done. And he does
amazing.
he does like talks for like 100 grand a pop now,
Yeah, it's
like,
insane.
what
It's insane.
the hell, And
Nuts.
I think his podcast just went above Joe Rogan's as well in America.
Really? I mean,
think
he
so.
has some amazing guests on there.
Yeah.
And just the conversations and topics and the stuff that he gets out of people is incredible. Yeah, he's great.
Saying again, this is about interviewing and being a host. I read one of his girls just left, and a Gemma or someone like that. And I think Grace. I think it was Grace who was saying the other day that when Stephen first started, they had to do take after take after take after take because he wasn't very natural with it. But now look at him. He just graceful and flows. Yeah, and that he trained that into himself because they were audio at first as well, weren't they? And then they moved to YouTube after a year or so. But yeah, just to show you can train yourself how to be a host, I suppose. But you've been doing it since you were 5.
Yeah. with my hairbrush in my bedroom.
Oh, brilliant! Anyway, we'll end on that. That was you've been amazing, Katie.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been so much fun because I didn't know half that stuff about Amnesia. I knew you'd worked there.
There you go.
And I look forward to seeing what you've got coming up this year.